We're turning our attention to the growing, unfortunate, consistent issue of referee abuse in the GAA, and I'm delighted to say we've got the Wexford GAA County Chairperson Micheál Martin to talk about the topic. Good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Ger. Good, thank you.
Look, unfortunately, we're talking to you guys because you've had some high-profile incidents in recent times, but I'm interested in the proactive response that you've decided to take to this. Can you talk to us first off about what you are doing on a practical level just to try and raise the issue so that it's not something that you're carrying the can for, but that it's actually something you can be in a leadership position for?
Yeah, listen, I suppose it's well documented at this stage that we've had particularly one high-profile incident, but this is an area that we have actually had on the agenda of every board meeting, both executive and full county board meeting this year, primarily because of the recruitment issue. I suppose to tackle that, we had come up with a number of initiatives that we thought were maybe making progress, but then obviously when the incidents, when some of these incidents came to light, I suppose we met last Tuesday night with our referees, and within that meeting we feel that a huge number of positive initiatives came out of it. Primarily, and I suppose I would be really proud in the first instance of the reaction of our clubs. We I suppose gave 1 week for the clubs to hold a workshop, and I think tomorrow night is the last night for that to be held. I think 70% of the clubs have held theirs already, and we will have over 1,000 mentors that will have sat in a room to self-evaluate the current sideline behaviour and attitude towards referees within each club. I think that's the key piece. That, you know, first of all, we've all acknowledged that there is an issue. There's an issue in our county, and I think it's across county, it's across codes. We're all aware of it at this stage. I think I referenced it previously as a societal issue, and I think it is, but it's an issue that we do have to deal with. So that's the first instance in terms of those workshops, and there's been a very positive reaction, both from club officials, from mentors, and parents.
Can we just tease out those workshops, because that's interesting, right? Like the self-evaluation bit is something that not everybody's very good at, right? It's you're asking people, is your behaviour acceptable? You're asking us to ask ourselves, is our behaviour acceptable? And like, how do you encourage that? How do you? Because I suppose one of the things here is that you would hope that a club will turn round to one of their mentors who is going as crossing the line, or to a parent crossing the line. But like, we've had this conversation before, you don't know who you're standing beside, and you don't know how angry people are, you don't know what's going on in their lives, you don't know whether or not they're likely to hit you. So a lot of people don't have the capacity to turn around to a parent or a mentor of a team and say, hang on a second, stop that's not acceptable.
Yeah, listen, I suppose we ultimately, as a club, the club has to take responsibility for who they appoint on to coach teams, and then once that responsibility is given to a coach, the coach has to be advised, mentored in terms of what is and what isn't acceptable. And that, I suppose, in terms of the workshop, and we would have given the guidance a very specific, simple but guidance in terms of what way we wanted the workshop to run, So, for example, we broke down every category from parents, supporters, players, mentors, a simple rating scale. We want you to rate your current behaviour from 1 to 10. And we gave some parameters within that in terms of, you know, some examples of what, say, misbehaviour would have looked like. And then under each heading, we're seeking an action to improve that. Now, we are aware, and I think it's really important, and I've said this since, that we don't want to tarnish everybody with a brush that there's misbehaviour on the sideline. There's a lot of positive behaviour, and the vast majority of volunteers across our county, across across the country go out and do wonderful work every weekend or every evening. But there are a small number of instances, and particularly at this stage of the year, I think when we get in a GA context, we're getting towards the knockout stages, where the prize is that little bit bigger, and the issues probably manifest themselves even more at underage level, to be honest. That, as I say, it's now time to hold up a mirror for the clubs to hold up a mirror to look at, is our behaviour acceptable? And the response we've got has been honestly really, really good. I don't know if you saw social media this morning, you see some pictures of the club workshops. They've been really, really well attended. I've spoken to a number of club chairpersons, and they've said there's been really, really good engagement, because I think there's a widespread acknowledgement that there are issues.
It's certainly great, Micheál, to see the I guess participation in these workshops. That's definitely a good sign and probably the first step forward. The only thing that would concern me, I guess, from the surveys, I guess a lot of people filling out these surveys, when they're being asked to rate themselves from 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, when you're filling out those surveys, you're sitting at home, you're not feeling nice and calm. I guess at the games then tempers flare and people react in the moment to things happening that piss them off. And as Ger says, we don't know the background stories of a lot of these people. Like, is it your concern that maybe something needs to be done at a higher level, whether it's the top of the GAA, whether it's government, that there have to be serious repercussions for people? I don't know if it's naming and shaming or what it might be, but that there has to be an extra element to this to really clamp down on it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, listen, this we would have acknowledged that this is the first step of the process that we've taken. I suppose we had some other recommendations arising out of our meeting last week, and I've been contacted by a huge number of people. We're actually going to participate in a piece of research with a researcher from UCD in relation to how we can make long-lasting change on this. And already the various phases, and even in the last week, I'd say we've engaged, broken down what a possible research project might look like in terms of making long-lasting behaviour. And we all recognise, and myself included, in the heat of battle, people are going to get excited and what have you, but there's a certain level of behaviours that are unacceptable. So we need to outline those behaviours and then make people aware that these are the sanctions. And I think we've already, I suppose we would be proposing and have proposed a special Congress, because this is a matter of urgency now, where the line is crossed, that the sanctions must be more stringent than they are at the moment. Our hands are tied at the moment in terms of the maximum limit of within the GAA, and we will be very strongly stating that maximum limit should be removed, and that it will be then at the discretion of the committee to implement a ban that may be more appropriate. So
bringing in lifetime bans, in a way, it's symbolic as much as anything. We were just talking about it earlier on in the office. Like, how do you actually police a lifetime ban? You don't need to flash an identity card to get into Croke Park for a match. But the fact that a whole community would know that somebody had transgressed to the point where the entire organisation says, you are shunned, you should not be allowed, we don't trust you to be involved in our organisation anymore. It's the symbolism of that as much as anything, rather than the actual day-to-day enforcement of it.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that, Ger. And remember, I suppose, again, in a GA context, the GA crosses every community. So generally, and I suppose Ireland is a small place, but within each community and within each county, it's a small place as well. Where someone transgresses to the point that a lifetime ban is deserved, I think that'll be easily enough implemented, being honest.
Yeah. Can I just ask you one thing? And this is a bit of a tangent, but we saw TG Carr mic'd up a referee, and I firmly believe that one of the reasons why the respect that rugby referees get and even American football referees get is that you can largely hear what's being said to them at some stage. It becomes public. In soccer, you can't. And in soccer, you can see the referee getting abuse. And in GAA, you can see the referee getting abuse. I think that would stop if we could hear what was being said. I think players would be shamed into not saying the stuff that they want to say. They'd bite their tongue, and tempers would calm if that was made public. There would be a period of maybe 6 months where stuff was being said that shouldn't be said, but it would, in much the same way that Ireland's a small community, people would be like, oh geez, I shouldn't have said that, I'm really sorry. Is there an element here where we could look at something else which is a bit left field into helping to to be part of the solution to this issue?
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. I think I think it's got to the stage where we need a complete review of our approach to refereeing. We need a complete review of the rule book because it's too convoluted. I mean, the playing rules of Gaelic football runs to about 64 pages. I see David Goff quoted at the weekend in relation to the simplification of the actual rules. And we even had an incident at the weekend at the end of one of our games where I know there was a kind of a general debate on what the actual rule was. Listen, if players and even if officials can differ in their opinion on a rule, well, then the rule is too complicated. I was talking to Pat Daly on this, and I think his mantra was rules should be easy to read, easy to remember, and easy to apply. I think our playing rules at the moment probably aren't that and need to be simplified. There's more people playing our games now than ever before, particularly at underage with the advent of GPOs and with Go games. But that means that there's people who probably don't have a level of understanding of the rules are following our games. So to go to I suppose to get to your point in relation to anything then that can help in the communication of that, be it the player mic or whatever other aspect, is something that should be at least explored and trialled and piloted. And I think we'd all acknowledge now we need to do more.
You mentioned, Micheál, the word recruitment there from the outset, and that's something that we've a number of weeks ago, I think when it was the incident in Roscommon, we spoke to David Goff and to Martin McNally, two referees at intercounty level, about that. Maurice Deegan as well quoted in the newspapers today talking about the fact that there's all this talk of the need for two referees on the pitch at the same time, but counties and clubs are struggling to get even one referee on the pitch. Like within your own county of Wexford, is that an issue, that area of recruitment, and negative stories like this cropping up is hardly going to make the issue of recruitment and bringing in new referees any easier?
Yeah, and that's why we've had it on the agenda. I mean, we recognise, at least 12 months ago, we recognised that we had a problem with recruitment referees, and we've gone from almost 70 to just over 50. Probably less than 50 active referees, and there have been, now not a huge amount of games, but there have been a number of games that haven't been able to go ahead because the sheer volume of matches at the weekend, we would have referees doubling up. So it's an obvious one, but without referees we don't have games. So the recruitment process is something that we've been actively looking at. We've had a couple of successes. I mean, the referee for our senior hurling this year, Eamon Furlong, recently retired player, probably would have had a reputation on the field as someone who would have been robust and would have known some of the dark arts maybe. But he has, in a short number of years, then has become a referee and refereed our senior hurling final to a really, really high level. And he's just an example. And I suppose, again, just to emphasise how great a reaction we've had this week in Wexford. He's been in a number of local schools in his area, was invited in to talk about respect for referee, to talk about the rules of the game. So it's that type of process that we're looking to generate now in terms of when we left the room with the referees last Tuesday night, we did say this can be a watershed moment in our county in relation to we have to change attitude. We need more referees, but the whole thing is part of a process. And unless we start that process and start it quick, we won't be recruiting new referees. We'll be losing the referees that we have.
There's a point here from Colin McKnight, which I was just about to make myself in the comments. County boards and teams need to stop getting their players who've been sent off on technicalities. Obvious red cards are being contested, and this needs to stop. It's true, really, isn't it, that actually the system of governance refereeing is actually under attack, basically from all sides, from supporters, management, even the administration, when it comes to look, we'll try and get you off, and if we have to go to the DRA, we'll go to the DRA. And generally the DRA are like, look lads, if the rule book isn't 100% nailed down, and how can it be 100% nailed down, then there's probably a technicality that you can get off anybody on at some level. That is a big issue. Our culture is to try and get off. It's to repent at the last minute and get into heaven.
Well, again, we would be recommending that the disciplinary process within the GAA is completely overhauled and reviewed. and we've made that recommendation. Actually, within the county, and our referees, I think, took some solace from it last week. We've had 188 red cards in our county championships this year, which, there's a huge number of games, but quite a high level of, say, red cards. There's only been 8 hearings, so only 8 of those red cards have sought a hearing, didn't accept the card, let's say, and only 2 of those have been overturned, and I think one was proven to be a mistaken identity. So within the county, we were quite comfortable with that. But to take your point, yeah, listen, there has been a number of high profile cases during the year, and they undermine the whole process. For disciplinary process. So there's some feedback on the line, sure.
No worries, go on.
Sorry, cut across you, Micheál. The issue probably is bigger at a club level because, needless to say, you can hear the abuse quite more obviously at matches at club level compared to, say, in Croke Park, where there's a full stand, and it's quite difficult for referees and players to hear this abuse. But even from your GAA supporters hat, like as someone who probably attends a lot of games yourself, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, have you noticed an increase in, when you're in stands yourself as a fan or as someone just there to watch a game, have you noticed maybe a bit of an increase in terms of abuse hurled at referees?
I think during COVID we didn't have crowds, and as we emerged from COVID with smaller crowds, I think everyone appreciated more the value of our games. But certainly since, I think, this year, only the Tuesday night before we had a particular incident, we would have spoken at a county board meeting about the level of unacceptable behaviour, particularly at underage matches. I think it manifests itself more at underage matches, particularly at this time of the year. So, say for example, we're now at semi-final, final stage of our underage games. One of the proposals that we've had was to mark out boxes at every ground, and that the mentors must stay in that. Now, we have that in our main stadiums and we have it in our high profile games, but you can't be having underage matches where mentors are 10, 15 yards in on the line, directing players, potentially then engaging with a referee. That's probably a growing phenomenon, and it's something that, again, from talking, I've spoken to a number of chairpersons and even other codes, that it's an issue. So and there has been a number of initiatives to try and address this, such as Silent Sideline and so on. But it's a culture change we need, and I would have said this last week. I think Sport Ireland probably need to take the lead on it in terms of bringing the NGBs together, and the policymakers need to develop an overarching protocol to address sideline behaviour.
I think that's right, and I think that it was interesting that the Houses of the Oireachtas held a hearing on this and came out with all their good ideas, but no one actually followed through to say, so hate crime legislation is being introduced at the moment. Can we have a special statute on the books where if you assault a referee in any sport, that actually there's a higher punitive rate to that, because it's like somebody who more than likely you're sucker punching, as we've seen. It's I don't know, maybe that's taking this too far, but Micheál, it's really interesting. You've got a practical, evidence-based approach to a problem that's nationwide, and I really hope that very interested to hear a bit more about that research you're doing at UCD, and we wish you all the best with it, because it absolutely needs to be fixed, and it's great to see you're putting so much effort into it. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
It's Micheál Martin there, the County Board Chairman of Wexford GAA.